This episode is brought to you by Honda. When you test drive the all-new Prologue EV, there's a lot that can impress you about it. There's the class-leading passenger space, the clean, thoughtful design, and the intuitive technology. But out of everything, what you'll really love most is that it's a Honda. Visit honda.com/EV to see offers.
Ampire. Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone from Miami. Oh, big day, big show for you today. We're going to talk about Jahan Dotson and where he stands in his mind and in Dan Quinn's mind in the hierarchy of the receiver corps. We get set for preseason game number 2 against the Dolphins tomorrow. I'm down here in Miami. We had a humid, crazy joint practice, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. But I want to start with Ben Standig of The Athletic, who was gracious enough to give me some time yesterday while we were at the joint practice yesterday to kind of run the gamut on everything that's going on with the Commanders. So let's start our preview day of preseason game number 2 with a conversation I had at the Dolphins facility yesterday with Ben Standig. Full disclosure, they haven't done the joint practice yet. We're talking before the joint practice. So assuming nothing of major newsworthy note happens, all topics apply, I think, at this point, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, look, I got the magic 8-ball here. I also got a crown from Burger King that they randomly gave me. I'm going to give that to the media member of the practice. So we're good. We can do some soothsaying here.
Yeah, he's not kidding. I wish I could show this to you. Ben's like walking by at the Dolphins practice facility and pulls out like he'd just gone to medieval times last night. Was rooting for one of the jousters, his knight. And I'm like, what is that? And you apparently got a kid's meal at Burger King.
I didn't. That's what's weird. I was like, I don't know what I want. I got a cheese and egg croissant, and they gave me this. I was like, I'm going to do something with this.
Yeah, did you get a toy, too? They put anything in the box?
No toy. But the sandwich was good. No complaints.
As you may know, because I've talked about this a lot, Ben has moved his podcast to Ampire Media, and we're pumped to have you. It's called Last Man Standig. So if you've been downloading his show under the old name, Standig Room Only, basically it's going to be available in 2 spaces for about another week and a half. And then the old feed's going to be gone. So we need you to go over and subscribe to Last Man Standig. Same show, maybe better, right? Oh. Production value better, we hope, right?
Definitely better production value. I got teammates. It's a brand new world. Very excited to be doing this. And the reaction's been great. And like Bram said, subscribe and we'll keep it going.
Most recent episode, and you may file one after the practice, but most recent episode, off of Martavis Bryant being signed, you went full galaxy brain and decided, well, this must mean something for Jahan Dotson. So give me your thinking here on what you're seeing with the receiver room and why you think Bryant showing up means something more than just another player in camp.
Well, let's go, I guess, back through the start of camp. I don't know what you would say, but I thought, like, Jahan seemed off the first week or so.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah. It was like, the play was a little bit erratic, but just like, the little bit of time we were around him, it just, I don't know, it seemed off. And look, he was coming off a down year. I don't know where he's at with his confidence. Who knows what's going on? You can never assume. And then his play, I thought, did pick up when they started more installs. The ball was getting down the field more. But that said, but I also thought Zacchaeus, like, independent of everything else, I thought Zacchaeus has probably looked sharper in camp, but still, I'm like, okay, there's still a gap there, right? But then you get to the first preseason game, and Jahan ends up playing 32 snaps, by far the most, well, not by far, but the most of the...
Into the second half.
Yeah, yep. Most of any of the receivers. Terry only went 11 snaps for comparison. And so then that's weird. So then asking Quinn about it the other day, and he's like, hey, what was sort of the point of doing that with Jahan? And he didn't say, oh, we just want Jahan. He's doing great. We just want to get more reps in Cliff's offense, whatever. He just kind of said, hey, we're trying these guys at every place. And I'm like, okay, so clearly something feels now that connects that feeling off part with what they're seeing as well. And it's not so much that Martavis Bryant is, because there's very different receivers, obviously. Bryant's a huge red zone target. Jahan's a slippery, slotty kind of guy. But it is like, okay, they're not satisfied with the room in general. And to add to the point today, Dan Quinn, speaking before practice, said, when asked about what he got asked specifically about wide receiver 2,
right,
which
I thought was and it came from someone who's kind of outside of our media core, which I thought was really the most interesting part of the whole thing.
It actually came from a guy who's a noted fantasy football writer, so he's looking at it from that perspective.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I was like, boy, that's a pointed question for someone who's not following it every day.
No. So obviously it's gotten some attention the last couple of days, and Dan Quinn said, the competition's ongoing. We're right in the middle of it, which again is very different.
And name-checked Zacchaeus as the first name out of his mouth. And then said, but we're going to give, and I'll talk about McCaffrey in a minute, we're going to give him a harder look, and I think that's something to watch out for this weekend in general. And then said, and we've seen what Diami's done in camp, and what he did obviously last week with a couple of really good catches, and the notable one, the check play one. I think this is a very open competition right now.
Yeah, and look, it goes back to, from the very start of all of this, we've talked a lot about this in terms of Jamin Davis. Nobody who returned is really guaranteed of much other than sort of the obvious 1793, et cetera, But I was okay, so that applies to Jamin Davis. You can see obviously some guys, Dax Milne, Christian Holmes already let go. But now it's another level. To get it to this point with Jahan Dotson is significant. And
it is interesting, too, because at the other, what I think is fluid position corner, Forbes has been given every opportunity to win the job. Dotson seems to be fighting for time. Forbes, and we can get to him in a minute, they keep running him out there with the ones, like constantly. Even when they put him on whatever the depth charts read, they're still running him out there with the ones.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to get into too much about what somebody's attitude is because I don't know what's going on in the building or what the coaches are saying, whatever. But to that end, when they have talked about Forbes, they have talked about, hey, he's worked really hard. They talked about him. I still chuckle at the 17 pounds thing, but okay, whatever. He's done that. He's worked hard. They seem to be impressed by that. And the same thing with Jamin, right? That they've said that he has not been balking at all about trying this new position.
No, actually, they've been effusive about how into it he is. I actually talked to him earlier this week, and I think it's legitimate. He is all in for, help me get my career on track. I want to do whatever I can to be better. And that's what they want to hear, and that's what they want to see.
Right. And look, we'll see there's obviously some questions about where those two guys stand in terms of the rotation, or maybe Jamin's case making the roster. But again, the positive attitude is a huge deal. And again, we focus on the team, the play on the field, but the culture change is very much part of what is happening here. They want, whether they win 6 games this year or 10, they want to reset what it means to be a player on this team. What are the expectations? And you can't do that if some of your main guys are not into it. And again, not saying that's the case, but if you look at the comparisons where you just said Forbes is still getting some ones, and it's not like Dotson won't be out there with the ones or anything, but he'll be out there with just possibly the same as the other guys. And it's not like he's still run routes. He's still fine. I mean, it's just something has felt a little bit off. So yeah, this is building towards something, and I guess we'll see what happens in terms of reps on Saturday.
To your point here, and I'm open to anything could happen over the next couple of weeks, because I was talking to Logan Paulson, who was in San Francisco year one with Kyle Shanahan and Adam Peters and John Lynch in that group, and they ended up trading 5 guys in the middle of camp because they were resetting. And I keep trying, and I was talking about this the other day on my show, I'm like, I think people need to realize this is still year one, that they are baselining everything. I haven't seen any sacred cows here. I think they are running a legitimate competition at a lot of different spots. And I think while they're not saying it, it feels to me lately, when we've asked a lot of pointed questions about a lot of specific people, I get the sense of they're kind of hey, we don't have all the answers here either yet. Give us an off season and a training camp to start to figure out what's what, who's who. And then when we make the decisions, we'll let you know. But don't read too much into this guy's doing this today and that guy's doing that tomorrow, because we're not even sure exactly what's what yet.
I was on TV this week with Scott Abraham, and one of the questions he asked me was, what would you say for expectations? What for you would be a good season? And I was like, well, look, obviously if they make the playoffs or win 10 games, sure, but I try to keep it somewhat realistic. You can win 6 games, but and be like, but that's, the record doesn't sound great. But if Jaden looks the part, and you're competitive, which is they weren't often, especially on defense last year, then you can see the signs, because this is in the middle of this recalibration, as Dan Quinn likes to say. So I think this is where it is. Where are they thinking? All the moves they made this offseason suggest they understand this is not about this year. It's about next year going forward.
That's right.
This is why I don't think the Brandon Ayuk trade has made any sense for them. Not that he isn't a good player, obviously, but it's going to cost a lot of money and a lot of picks, and that doesn't make fit for where they are right now.
That is not how they've acted in any way, shape, or form. No. They did a lot of deals, a lot of different people, and they're all, with a couple of exceptions, short-term and not for a lot of money and things they can get out of. So if they turned around and paid $30 million for a wide receiver, one, they're going to have to talk to Terry's people immediately after that. Secondarily, it doesn't feel like the time is right to do something like this.
Also, I mean, a separate topic, I just don't think wide receiver is the way to build a team, and to have two guys making that much money. You know, if Ike's getting somewhere in 30 and Terry's at the 25 mark, that he's going to want to do a deal soon.
Not yet. Here we are in Miami. I understand why they gave Waddle and Hill the money, because they're the number one offense in the league, and they're looking at a window where they might win, so they're going to make them happy and take a run at it. We're in building step one. Like we're nowhere near anything like that.
Right. Well, and look, Mike McDaniel has gone all in on the speed kills kind of deal.
Yes.
So cool. That's if you're doing it. I don't think Cliff Kingsbury is necessarily doing that, which I'm not saying is wrong. I'm saying, like, if you want to do that, if that's your team, okay, go for it. You know, it's just like with any sport, you know. NBA, some teams are going to go pure up-tempo, and other teams will want to slow it down. Make that call, but they haven't made that call that they're going all in at the receiver. Anyway, so yeah, everything I think has got to be up in the air. And, like, to take this to the galaxy brain level, like, if they get to a point where, like, look, whatever we think of Jahan, we just don't know that he's for us, for whatever the reason. But he's still a good player.
He is.
He's got 2 years left in his rookie deal. If things don't go, they'll have to make a call after this year about picking up the fifth-year option if he's here. They might say, look, here's where we're at. We don't know where he's going to be going forward, and we're not in love necessarily. Does it make sense to trade him now? I don't know what you'd get for him, but look, get something.
Well, something valuable, because you know how these trades work. If you give a very controllable deal for a couple of years, you get a better asset back. The Ayuk issue is you got to pay him $30 million a year and give him this long extension, and they want the assets to go along with it.
Right. So, I mean, it becomes the point of, like, again, I don't want to say it, but let's just say it's a fourth-round pick for argument's sake. That fourth-round pick next year is probably better for them, whether that's to take the player with that pick or to now have an extra pick to make other kind of trades, whatever it might be. And I think that's a debate. Again, I'm not saying they're there. They may never even thought about that. But, like, this is where, in terms of this roster, there are some guys where I'm sure they have to be deciding, maybe he helps us.
Yeah.
But maybe his value on the market is better. And by the way, you know,
and though he wants to be here thing, and I'm not saying he doesn't, but, like, I've gotten the similar kind of what's up vibe, you know? And I'm with you on this, because if there's anything I've learned about Quinn, he wants positivity. You're all in for this. Like, he's going to get to know you. He wants to have a relationship with you. And I do get the feeling, like, if on any level you're one of those people that's kind of like, I just don't know if this is for me, I think he's all out. He's not here to convince you, right? I don't get that sense from him.
Yeah. Again, you know, that's what I always tell people. Like, we're watching in practice, important on the field. That's only a small portion, relatively speaking, of their day. There's a team meeting, what goes on inside the building, the walkthrough, position room meetings, whatever it might be. So there's so much that we don't know in terms of how that's going. But, you know, again, I personally think that in terms of, like, doing this job, it isn't just go off of what they say. You got to look and see and get a feel and have good instincts about this. And, you know, 32 snaps for Jahan Dotson in a preseason game.
It was a lot.
I mean, Zacchaeus only had 10 in the game, and he was returning punts too, but, like...
He's really popped in camp. They like him. He was name-checked first when the reporter who asked about number 2 receiver, he said Zacchaeus.
Yeah. No, I mean, and look, I think there's, you know, if you said, forget the individual people, for this team right now, like, what would a 3 receiver set, what would Cliff Kingsbury want? Well, you have the all-around guy, obviously, in Terry. They don't have a guy with that size unless Bryant or Bryson Tremaine really emerges big time.
That's right.
But you do have a speed guy in Diami, and then you have a couple of slot options. And I think there's something to be said for Terry on one side, Diami on the other. I'm not overstating I'm just saying purely for that one trait, the speed, and then the slot. And if Zacchaeus is playing better than Jahan, then I think that's how you get to the point where Jahan isn't starting.
And McCaffrey, who hasn't shown much, but is going to get profiled this weekend. I know he's going to get a ton of snaps. They really want to get a long look at him. Regardless of whether he pops this year for them, he's a third-round pick. He's not getting cut. So you have to take that, like, no matter what happens here, they're not cutting a third-round pick.
Well, and then also, and this is, like, been the thing with me with, like, Jamin in terms of not having him on my 53 is, look, if he shows enough at edge to think that he can be part of the rotation, that's one thing. But if he's a backup defensive end or linebacker, he's going to have to play special teams. He's not done that in his career because he was a starter. I said there's somebody that he can't play special teams. I don't mean he literally can't. I just mean he hasn't done it.
He hasn't done
and
it.
we haven't seen it. And they didn't play much in special teams in the first preseason game. So that's how that's a role for backup linebackers. And same thing, therefore, with Jahan. He's too small. You're not putting him on coverage teams. He's been back there for punt returns, but I don't know that he's that guy. So what is it? Again, I don't want to go overboard, but we're obviously a little bit in that frenzy right now. And when the coach says we're right in the middle of the wide receiver discussion.
Well, I mean, to that point, so De'Ami Brown's had a really good camp. I've been of the opinion when it comes to him that I'd like to see one more go with him in a new offense that goes downfield a lot, because I think that's his strength. And to your point about is he a willing participant in other things? He is on special teams. He will go cover kicks. He will block on the edge. He is that kind of player. And I think it gives him an advantage here. And then go make a couple plays like he did in that game a week ago. And suddenly, I think you feel a little differently about him. Like, people forget this is a very high draft pick who's kind of survived a few years here without getting a lot of opportunity. And if I was guessing right now, he'll be opposite Terry in week 1, if I had to guess right now.
It's one of the many examples of how the last regime really just screwed this roster, not just even because, or screwed some of the players. I'm not even talking about individual players that maybe didn't work out, but you have Terry. You draft De'Ami and sign Curtis in the same year, but Curtis obviously doesn't really do anything that first year. Then they spend a first-round pick the next year on Jahan. That's 4 receivers that you've now invested in. None
of which are true number 1 receivers, which is the amazing part of the whole thing.
But also, you're not playing them. This isn't like baseball where you can rotate the outfilders and have a DH and maybe somebody at first. So De'Ami has just not had a chance to play. Now, I'm not making an excuse of maybe he's just not done enough with the opportunities. And I know that the team put him on the trade market right before the deadline last year, but he hasn't had the opportunity. Every time we see him in the offseason, he looks good. And the fact that Quinn has cited him specifically for his energy, even on the plays where he knows he's not getting the ball, but he is making himself available for should something break down or block or be a decoy or whatever. And if the coach is noticing your energy and you can make some plays down the field with speed, that's the type of thing that's get you a roll.
I want to go back to this idea of I really think this is legitimate competition going on here. Sometimes the coaches say that that's the case or it's going to be that way. Not always. Not always. That there are guys that are protected or expected to do things. I don't get that sense here, which is why I think that we're all reacting day to day, because I don't think they have the answers, because it is a legitimate competition. People are going to win. We know Jane Daniels is going to be the quarterback, but people are out here winning certain jobs right now. And I know no one ever believes that, but I feel it this year that's really happening.
Well, and also, the no sacred cows thing, again, they've already turned over more than half the roster. Right, a lot of the guys who've been getting cut so far were draft picks, but not their draft picks. Again, I'm not saying Christian Holmes or Dax Milne should have been staying with the team. I'm just saying if they're your draft pick, better chance you give them the longer rope.
100%.
So that's a thing. And all bets are off. And I think another spot's going to be interesting to this regard. It may not matter because Brandon Coleman we don't know when he's coming back. Yeah. But if Brandon Coleman won out the left tackle spot, was there a world where Lucas beat Wiley out for the right tackle?
Maybe.
I don't know. I'm not saying it, but that could
I don't get that sense, but maybe.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that could be another example of where but Lucas was here before too. You know what I mean? I think there's more scenarios open. So we'll see. It does make it fun, and it is good to see. Like you said, it's one thing to say something, it's another thing to do something, and their actions have been meeting their words in many cases.
All right, where are you on Forbes then? Because he keeps getting run out there with the ones. An unofficial depth chart comes out. He's not listed as a starter. There's no clear players, in my opinion, that are obviously better than him. I think this is a position potentially of weakness. We all know that. That's a potential this year. But where are you on him? Because I don't get this any sense as they're moving away from him, but will he be prominently featured? I don't know at this point.
Well, let me ask you this. In terms of the type of defense they're going to do, we're not seeing much of anything out here because it's all vanilla. They just did nothing but man last week against the Jets. That was part of the plan. You think they're going to be more zone than they were last year? Or the last year, they were more man?
Yes, but that's my guess.
That's my guess too, right? But
that's just a guess, and I think that's where this is a concern here. This is why I keep using the word when I talk about him is I'm concerned. I just don't know and I see him putting in the work. I see the attitude. He's doing everything they're asking him to do. The question is he a scheme fit? Is he big enough to handle, we can have these questions about physicality because of his size, and it is important. But is he a scheme fit? And I think really, until they talk about it openly, I'm not sure. But I think this isn't a work ethic or want to or any of that stuff conversation. This is a, can he succeed out there in what they're asking him to do?
And so to that point, like, I'm wondering, like, based on what he did in college, like, it seems like he would be better from a team that was more zone. And if they're not going to show anything out here, maybe we're just not seeing him in the light that they see him. Again, this is the coaching staff that helped turn Bram from a 5th-round pick to the guy that set the record for most interceptions or touchdown returns. Interception return for touchdown.
Yeah, the year before, Trayvon Diggs is a high pick. He broke a Cowboys record for interceptions in a single season.
And of course, we know what Forbes' history was in college, so they've got to be looking at it going, okay, he clearly has the anticipation skills to get this done. How do we get him in the right spot? I'm just wondering, this is benefit of the doubt. I could be very wrong, but is it that we're just not seeing what's going to be best for him, and that's why they're saying keep going? But that said, yeah, it feels like in the corner room you've got the 3 outside guys, Forbes, St. Juice, and Davis with Sanders still inside. And then there's the other group of, like, Ty Blue Kelly and Tariq Castro Fields and Newseum, and, like, is anybody from that group going to jump to the other group? Because it's not like the other group is that.
I mean, I'll tell you what I know about it. I know they like a Newseum, but I don't know about playing prominently. I think they're very intrigued by him, and he screams practice squad, if not more, bottom end.
Sure.
In terms of the slot thing, what I think will be interesting is, do they actually give Sanders still some run on the outside? Because they like Igbenogany on the inside if he'll safe there. Do they feel like they're weak on the outside where they need to give Sanders still some run? Because he's a day one slot starter for them, which would seem to answer a question. If they start moving him out there just to test run that, I think it's a very telling thing about where they think they are.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think this is going to be, we've talked so much about the offensive line as, a concern. To me, cornerback was right there, and it may now for me have gone above it, because even though the offensive line, they're not starting Jacoby and Lachey at tackle, but Luke, even tomorrow, if they wanted to play James Daniels, on Saturday, if they wanted to play James Daniels the whole first half, which does not sound likely, but if they did, if you have Lucas and Wiley,
that's not happening, by the way.
Right? Yeah. If you have Lucas and Wiley, I think you'd be like, okay, we can do that. Again, I'm not saying that's the equivalent of let's get the Lombardi Trophy tackles.
Yes,
but there's that at corner. Boy, I'm not sure.
I'm willing to hear out that the scheme situation and the pass run ratio last year was terrible for Wiley, and I'm willing to hear out a do-over. I know not a lot of fans don't like to hear that, but yeah. I'm completely open to it. I think he's a professional player. When I talked to Logan Paulson about it, he goes, yeah, his strikeouts are bad, but if you watch him play to play, this guy's a pro. And he goes, in a different scheme, give him a second chance, and I agree with that sentiment about him.
And also last year, the leaks were coming from all over the place. If the inside trio they put together, Allegretti, Biotic, and Cosby, is solid. Yeah. And obviously Cosby looks like he could be a Pro Bowler.
I agree.
Biotic is an upgraded center.
Yes.
Stays healthy. And Allegretti certainly has, played for the Chiefs and helped them in the Super Bowl and all that. And then at least you can then know, okay, now we can help our tackles more, whether that's John Bates chipping or, double teaming somebody on the outside, or the running back chipping, or we know where to put it. Last year it was like, I'm turning my head. I don't know where to go. And I think that makes it harder. So if the 3 inside are a real solid group for them of strength, that's going to make it easier on the tackles as well. But also, look, I think if Brandon Coleman comes back, we don't know when that's going to be yet. They certainly seem to be liking him. He seemed to be gain momentum to be the starting left tackle, which is a notable thing from an upside, and that's a different variable. Like, okay, maybe there's more there. Whereas Wiley and Lucas, kind of feels like we're at the ceiling.
Yes.
And it's not too high, and it is what it is. But sometimes you just got to do what you got to do.
I think they're playing the music that's fit for a king, so you might want to put your crown on now. I think it's time.
Yeah. Hey, all right. You got any early thoughts here? Predictions of who's going to be the media member that gets it today?
Gets the crown? Yeah. Oh, you're handing it out today to the king of the practice?
Yeah, king or queen, depending.
I'm thinking Mitch Tischler. I mean, that's, he's got to gut one out here today. It is like 8,000 degrees.
Yeah, it's just so different from up in New Jersey. It was kind of cold. It was pouring at times. It is Miami. Sunny.
He's had a good camp, Mitch. I got to tell you, I feel like he's really upped his game this year.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. 100%. By the way, just in terms of this, I know since we're talking before, I'm getting the sense that we may see some guys at different spots than we're used to.
Yeah.
And that now I'm not talking about Jamin at edge. We've already seen that, but maybe some other guys. So I think that's going to be something interesting to see for all of us in advance as to what happens and What do we make of that?
Last Man Standig is the name of the podcast. Download it, subscribe to it, and Ben, as always, thank you so much for joining me.
Bram, thanks for having me on the pod and with Ampire Media.
Up next, you'll hear from Jahan Dotson, and you'll hear from Dan Quinn as well, as we try to figure out the most competitive spots on the team as we enter preseason game number 2 against the Dolphins. Bram watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. Welcome back. Bram watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, let's focus in on one of the big competitive groups that I'll be watching really closely tomorrow night and into the final preseason as the Commanders get set to cut down to the 53-man roster. And I probably shouldn't bring up cut downs when I talk about Jahan Dotson, because I don't think he's in literally any danger whatsoever of anything like that. But finding a role for him has been a curious adventure this summer. From the spring on, there was a lot of discussion about him with improving his hands, improving his breaks at the line of scrimmage, and then trying to figure out exactly kind of how he fits into this new offense. And, you know, I just want to say up front, like, I still think he's a multi-talented player. I think he's one of the best route runners I've seen. He's got really soft, smooth hands. He's very quick. And he had, and I think that's part of what we're going to talk about here, had this kind of mojo about him in his rookie season where he really was not scared to get into one-on-one situations. He's got a lot of moxie out on the field. He scored 7 touchdowns in a situation where, honestly, the quarterbacking play was not very good. So it just considering I know that I look at the receiving core and I see depth, but I don't necessarily see a lot of high-end, high-caliber talent outside of McLaurin. I'm hoping that Dyami Brown ascends that way. We're hoping Luke McCaffrey offers some kind of, high-end, high-ceiling slot, multifaceted capability. And then there's Jahan, who's got these kind of skill sets that made him a first-round pick a couple of years ago, had a really good start in his rookie season. But last year, in my opinion, was completely misutilized in the offense. He was kind of taken away from being a route runner, which is what his really best attribute is. Can they find a way to get him some quicker releases and allow him to play fast? You're going to hear him talk about that in a minute. He did an interview after practice yesterday, but I think we need to start with, and you'll hear about the confidence, but I think we need to start with Dan Quinn, because an innocuous question was asked by a reporter, and it was interesting. I later found out the reporter asked this because he's a fantasy football writer, and obviously he's trying to figure out rankings for players and where they kind of stand. And because this was not a reporter who's typically in our media pool that did this at the joint practice yesterday. So listen, so it came off as almost pointed, but because it wasn't from somebody in our media crew, I had to figure out what was this about. And it's obviously someone following it closely, but not writing about where Jahan fits in on all of this. But the answer Dan Quinn gave was really interesting.
At with the wide receiver 2 search?
I would say we are right in the middle of it. Okay. And so you'll see a lot of guys in today. You'll see 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a lot of guys that are really battling. I've been really impressed with Alameda. And I thought he's had a really strong camp. Looking forward to getting Luke some extra work into here, Jahan, Dyami. So that's where we're at. And then the special teams is going to have a factor in that as well.
Do you expect Jahan to play a similar volume of snaps as he did last week?
Probably. Yep, I would say I don't know if it'll be the exact same, but it'll be in the similar space. Same high volumes on the other guys that I listed as well.
What would you like to see more or less of from him? I mean, just having come in new season with any new player, what would you like to see?
Yeah, I think with all the guys that we were talking about at that spot, the urgency, the run game, the pass game, so the quickness in and out of breaks. So not everybody plays the same spot, Nikki, but I do want to see with he and with all the other guys really finding some really competitive moments, that plays after the catch, the blocks, at the point of attack.
So we're right in the middle of it, is the way that he put it. So Dyami Brown has had a really good camp. Dyami Brown made a couple of great catches a week ago, including the one that, was checked to, the famous one that Jaden threw on the first 3rd and 6. He threw up the 42-yard pass, and Diami made a really nice play on it. And Diami Brown has ascended. And he's someone who I'm happy for him, because here's somebody who hadn't gotten a lot of opportunity through the first 3 years, was a high draft pick under Ron Rivera. They couldn't seem to find space for him on the field very often on offense. He had a couple of key moments through the first few years. He had one big game against Tennessee, and that was really about it for him. But as things kind of materialized, they asked him to do other things, like be part of special teams. And he did. He was he was a willing participant in all of it. And all of a sudden here this spring and summer, he seems to be getting more opportunity. And, I think it's important that Jaden checked to him, that was a big deal, that he went and checked to him. He could have checked to really anybody, but he checked to him on that play. And as we stand right now, and I think things can change, I think things are very fluid with this team. I talked about this a lot yesterday with Carle, where I'm don't forget we're in year one. Don't make rash conclusions because one guy's doing one thing one day and then the next day they're trying someone else out. I think they're trying to get to the answers by using a process. And with the receiver group, the same thing's happening. And I'll tell you about some of that in a minute. But in the case of Brown, I think he's ascended. And as of today, I envision the starting 3 receivers, if they came out in a 3-receiver set, as being McLaurin, Diami Brown, and Olamide Zaccheaus. And then Luke McCaffrey is going to get featured pretty heavily tomorrow night against the Dolphins. I think they want to see what they can do with him. I think they're going to move him around a little bit. I think he's going to get a lot of playing time, maybe even initially with Jaden, and then probably a lot of playing time with Jeff Driscoll, because we have a quarterback situation here because Mariota's not going to play because of a groin injury that was suffered. So, where they're going to try to find out where he is. But that leaves the question of where is Jahan Dotson? And I think one of the larger points of asking this question initially from that reporter, where he says, where's the number 2 receiver race at right now? And he says, we're right in the middle of it. You would think that you would automatically say, going in at the beginning of the year in the spring, and I'm well, I know who our top 2 receivers are. It's Terry and Jahan. That's not the case right now, and it hasn't played out that way. And I've talked a lot about how there's no sacred cows, and this is a real competition going on here, and everybody's kind of fighting for the same spots. But, not everybody's equal here. No one's questioning whether John or Duran are the starting defensive tackles. They are. Nobody's questioning if Terry McLaurin's the number 1 receiver. He is, so it's not that all the carryovers are being retested here, or that or even Brian Robinson, who, is going to share time with Austin Eckler, but there's no question about that he's going to have a prominent role in this offense. Sam Cosmi is the right guard. They've did a lot of moving around with pieces with the offensive line, but he's the right guard. Jahan is one like Jamin Davis, and maybe to a lesser degree Emmanuel Forbes, who are prominent starters that are trying to find their way here and prove themselves. And in the case of Davis and maybe Dotson to a lesser degree, trying to find their role. And I'm not sure where it is. So what Jahan Dotson said after practice, and I'm going to play it for you in a second, it wasn't that far off from some of the things he's been saying anyway, through the course of camp, that have given me some pause and concern about where his head is and where his role is right now. So this wasn't really new for us that are following it, but hearing him say it after the joint practice was kind of telling about where kind of he is as he's trying to figure out where he kind of fits into all of this.
Trying to show what I can do every single day, and just be better than I was yesterday. I'm trying to grow every single day that I come out here. Trying to find something to get better at every single day. That's my overall main focus. Just to be better than I was yesterday. Keep building on my game because I'm not where I want to be, and I'm going to keep building every single day to make sure I'm where I want to be.
What's your comfort level just with the offensive change? I mean, since you've come in the league, you've dealt with a number of coordinator changes, offensive changes. I mean, where are you at with this one?
I feel like I'm getting pretty comfortable with the offense, especially moving inside and outside, being able to play almost every position we have in the wide receiver room. I feel like I'm getting pretty comfortable, honestly. And, it's just me going home every day and getting in my playbook, making sure that I know where I'm supposed to line up, my assignment. And that enables me to play faster. Being comfortable with the playbook is big for me, especially early on in camp. As we're getting through camp, making sure that I know what I'm doing, no matter where they throw me. That's a big focus for me.
Jaden, when you look back at look at the playbook of the films and everything at this stage, what are some of the things that's standing out about what you're seeing in your game right now? Some of the things that's standing out when you look back at the film, what are some of the things that's standing out that you see that you like or stuff that you may want to still work on?
I'm working on my game every single day, just to be better. I feel like each and every day I'm playing faster and faster, and kind of getting that confidence back. And that's a big thing for me, making sure that I'm able to play fully confident in myself and fully confident in my game and fully confident in the playbook. And like I said, that enables me to play fast and do the things that I know I can do.
They weren't afraid to throw a lot of interesting defense out there. Wasn't just vanilla. How do you think you guys did with that, especially with Jaden, the quarterback?
Yeah, I feel like we did pretty well. We know that they throw a lot of different blitzes out there. They don't have a lot of guys in coverage. They try to get to the quarterback fast. And I feel like Jaden did a good job of picking stuff up today. I felt like we were killing them in the red zone. I feel like we were scoring almost every other play. But yeah, it was good work. It's a very good team, a very good defense. And I was happy we came down here and got some good work.
How was it working with Jaden? How was it working with Jaden?
It's been good. Just building our relationship, not only on the field, but off the field. Just trying to make sure that, I know what he wants, where he wants me to be on certain plays. And he knows what I like to do and how I like to run my routes. It's just building that connection each and every day, whether it's staying after practice, getting some extra work in, some extra routes, working on over-the-shoulder catches, different stuff, making sure that we build that chemistry.
All right, so that was Jahan Dotson yesterday. Like I said, Luke McCaffrey is going to get profiled here. I think they want to see what he can do. Zacchaeus has really stood out. And, if you're going to say clear, number 2, right now, take your pick of either he or De'Ami Brown. But, I would think the 3 of them are the ones you're going to see a lot of. Kaz Allen has shown a lot of flash. I think they're trying to figure out a way. Can he be helpful in the return game? And can they utilize him as a player that moves around on the field? I think you're going to see some opportunities for him offensively that might be surprising tomorrow night. And let's see where they line him up and how they utilize him, because they might be trying to see, can he earn himself a spot as a weapon type player, not a featured player, but a weapon player. And that will also come back to, can he really help them on special teams? Because that's what's going to really, really, really be important for them if he's going to be able to do that. But the receiving core is very interesting. And then at the bottom of it, more and more and more, you're like, well, how is Jamison Crowder or Byron Pringle or Bryson Tremaine or Mitchell Tinsley, how are these guys making the team? And the answer is most of them, if not all of them, aren't. So let's see how this all plays out against the Dolphins. I think it's really maybe the most interesting spot, because Jahan is so kind of up in the air about what his role is. If he ends up playing a prominent, extensive role, I'd be like, well, that's what was supposed to happen. He's a number 1 pick who's only in his 3rd year, and that's what I anticipated going into the offseason would be. If he ends up being someone who's fighting just to get time on the field because others have kind of ascended above him, that's also interesting to see how that's going to play out here, not only into the end of the preseason, but into the regular season as well. All right, up next, you're going to hear from Spirit defender Gabby Carle, who played in the Olympics with Canada. She's very open and honest about a very weird experience her national team had while they were over in Paris, and to get ready for the return of the NWSL season, which is just a little over a week away. She gets a preview into what we can look forward to for the Spirit after they return from the Paris break. Bram wants to show ESPN 630 Sports Capital. Welcome back. For this week's Spirit Spotlight, we catch up with Spirit defender Gabby Carle, who is back from the Olympics in Paris. I know your experience was a little different than others. I don't want to belabor any of it because it was unusual what was going on with your team. But overall, what was your experience like in the Olympics?
Yeah, I think unusual is a good way to put it. Personally, for me, it was a dream come true, something I've wanted as a little girl, to be able to play in the Olympics like that, and play an important role for the team. I think collectively it was more of a horror movie for some time. It was really tough initially. But then the resilience that we showed as a team,
Yeah.
the way we decided we weren't just gonna sit down and give up, and we fought back. I think that's something that was inspiring for all of us too, and something I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Yeah, again, I don't want to really belabor it, but since you're talking about just for a moment and just for context for people, there was a scandal with drone usage of by the team, and then the coach left, but you guys played on, and I was like thinking about you and your teammates, and you guys work your whole lives to have this Olympic experience, and then it happens, and then all of a sudden, something that's completely out of your control kind of changes it. I don't know any other word for it, but like that just sucks, for you guys to have to deal with something like that. Like you guys had nothing to do with it. It stinks.
No, yeah, it was. I think it took us by shock. I think we were all shocked. For some of us, for some of the girls on our team, it was their first Olympics. For others, it was their last.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity that comes once every 4 years. And for that to happen, at such a pinnacle point in our careers, it was tough. It was hard to believe, but then what came out of it, I think that's what I want to take from it and take forward.
Yeah. What did you learn about yourself, your teammates by playing through all of that? Because Canada remained extremely competitive in the tournament.
For sure. I think we, at that point, had nothing to lose. But I think it's easy to say, oh, I had nothing to lose, so I just did it. We still had to do it. Our backs were against the wall, and I think it would have been easy to just be like, well, we're not getting out of this one. It's not our fault, and we'll just go home, But I think we all had a sense of duty towards one another, towards the ones who were going to be there for one last time and the people that were there for the first time. I think all together we knew that we could make something, beautiful out of this. And that's what we did.
And then overall, just what is it like for you to put on a jersey with your country's name on it?
It's always an honor. No matter what competition, it's always an honor. But when you get to wear it for the Olympics, when people are watching, it's extra special. It's hard to describe. It's because at the end of the day, it's a soccer game. It's a soccer tournament, but it also is so much more than that. And it also means a lot more to the people back home, and to be able to play for them, for my country, is something truly special.
All right. Last thing about the Olympics. The United States came in semi as an underdog. And so I think it's a little surprising that they ended up winning the tournament, but they did so. And 4 of your teammates are going to come back with gold medals for their experience over there. What did you make of the tournament as a whole and the United States winning it?
Yeah, I think I truly am happy for them, for all of them. However, it is hard, I think, as a competitor,
Yeah,
to not be the one coming back with the gold medal. There's that reality that I'm not gonna hide from, but having lived it in Tokyo, winning gold is, oh my God, it's there's no word to describe it, and I'm happy that they all get to experience that, because at the end of the day, they are my friends and I care about them.
yeah. Last one on this. Trinity Rodman had just an outstanding tournament. I think you play with her, and we get to see it because we're close to watching the Spirit play it. At really how special of a player she is, but to do it on that stage, it must be something. It must be something really special to watch and see happen.
For sure, and that's not something that just happens, This is something that you prepare for. This is something you work for. And I knew she was ready for it. The way she is, the way she's been training, how much she cares about training, how much she cares about getting better, and the performance she's put in the league. I think when you play like that, then you set yourself up for a performance like the one she had at the Olympics. And I'm really happy for her.
All right, let's talk about the Spirit a little bit. You guys are back together. You're going to have a friendly this weekend against Arsenal. What are your kind of expectations as everybody gets back into the States and the team starts training together again?
Yeah, today was my first day back. So I'm everything's kind of fresh for me. A lot of new faces at training. But it was really great to see everyone. I think for the Arsenal game, I just think it's an amazing opportunity for us to go out and play against Arsenal, which is a team from the English league, which is a very dominant league in women's soccer. So for us to go against them, measure ourselves against them is just, I think, a great opportunity. And then it prepares us for our game against Kansas, which is rapidly coming up.
Yeah.
I think we won't get a lot of time to prepare for that, considering that, a lot of our players won gold at the Olympics and will only be back in a week. But I think with the players we have right now, it's good to get that test against Arsenal, and it's good to prepare right now.
You mentioned the new faces, that the team's been very busy in this interim. They've signed some international players that are coming in. So what do you make of your new teammates, and what are your expectations as everybody tries to kind of get on the same page here for the second half of the NWSL season?
Yeah, I think they're quality players. I also think they're quality humans. Obviously, I don't know them much, but just from the interactions I've had, I can just tell that they're a great fit for our team. I think we already had a lot of depth in our team prior to those signings, and now I think we're in a really good spot with them.
All right, so the season gets going again with Kansas City in about a week and a half or so. As you think back to how the first half, if you will, of the season before you went on the break was going, what do you think the Spirit were doing really well that you would like to see carry over? And where are some of the improvements you would like to see with the team as they pick up play again next week?
That's a good question. I think with new coaching staff coming in this season, I think we've really tried to play possession style of soccer. And I think as the first half of the season went on, I think you could see that we were getting it right more and more. I think it's important that we carry this through now that we've had kind of a summer period where people were in different spots. I think it's important that when we come back together, that we kind of keep that identity going. Then in terms of what we can improve, that's a good question. I mean, I think there's a few things we can improve, I think. But really, I think it's keeping, I think, more clean sheets. I think we've been good defensively, but how can we be even better? And same for the attacking side, is how can we capitalize more on our chances?
And the first game back is against Kansas City. They had a really, really strong first half. I think they only have one loss on the season. So it's going to be a really good first test as you guys get back into play again.
Kansas City, I think, is obviously a very dominant attack. So what I just said about us keeping clean sheets and just like being tested defensively, I think that's going to be a great game for us to see where we're at. And then I think there's going to be good opportunities to score on them too. But they're a very good team that has barely lost. And I'm really excited that we get to play against them for the first time.
Gabby, I know the Olympics didn't go the way you wanted to, but there is the possibility of a championship here. This is a very, very good Spirit team. So good luck the rest of the season. And hopefully we'll see you get to the finish line there. Thank you so much for joining us this week.
Thank you very much.
All right, that'll do it for today. Commanders, Dolphins, tomorrow night, 7 p.m. kickoff. You can check out me, London Fletcher, Logan Paulson in the booth for preseason game number 2. We'll have a full recap for you on Monday. Bram, watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.